Hey guys, welcome to the party. My name's Mike Dinsio. We're going to get this party started. I'm really excited about the topic tonight as it is a good one. We are going to talk about the next level startup. So my name's Mike Dinsio. I'm one of the co-founders of Next Level Consultants. We've been around. We're a consulting firm for a while now. And we do a lot of startups and a lot of pre-ownership consulting that's acquisitions and startups. And so, a little bit about me. So founded the company. Paula Quinn is my business partner. If you all have been following me on our podcast, if you haven't, check it out. But it's called Dental Unscripted. There's a little air there. It's a co-founder and co-host of Startup Unscripted. It used to actually be called Startup Unscripted. Now it's just simply called Dental Unscripted. So check it out. You all that are on the webinar, you probably knew that. But if you didn't, I invite you to check out that podcast. It's got an incredible amount of content from how to buy, how to start, and even how to run a practice once you get into ownership. So, but yeah, this slide deck needs to be a little updated. We're well over 400 now, helping doctors get into ownership. We'll do about 40 a year, give or take. And we love what we do. I personally have been in the industry for almost 2 decades. Initially, I was with a dental lender, and that's how I got my start. Helped a lot of doctors finance those big dreams that you all have of getting into ownership. Let's see here, is going back as far as 2012. I used to finance and work for Bank of America. Got a little burned out on lending to you guys. It was a great job, a dream job. You know, you got the expense account and I'm from Seattle. So you got the Seahawks suite and, but being a banker was great. Lent a lot of money and built a lot of relationships, but just something was missing. And so that's when I pivoted to consulting. And what I realized as a dental lender was that you all needed a lot of help. Like you could approach a lender, but you didn't have it really the full picture. And I would find myself coaching my clients with me telling them what their business plan should be. And instead, it should have been the opposite, right? Like, I found that you all just weren't prepared approaching a lender and asking them for maybe $500,000. And that was 2012. Today, you guys are asking for $1 million to do startups. Could you imagine going to a lender and asking for $1 million and just not really having a solid business plan? So I was seeing that. I was also seeing a lot of the vendors in the industry where there was a lot of good old boys and circles and, he would refer to me and I would refer to him. And there was like a lot of that. And so I felt that this consulting was there was a calling for me to jump in with both feet and just give you guys all of what I knew about the industry and help you guys get into ownership the right way. So on average, I'll help you save somewhere between $40,000 to $60,000. Again, spent a decade just lending and another decade consulting now. I've spoke for a lot of dental schools and societies. So look, like I'm really excited about just giving you everything I got tonight. I will say a little housekeeping real quick. There is a comment box. I'm not sure if it's down below or on the right-hand side. But, I would love this presentation to be even interactive. Asking me specific questions, I'm game on. I'll answer anything for you. Use this time for you guys. Like I always say, there's 2 big ways you can use your time, and it's a lot like money. You can invest your money, and you can just spend money. And you can also just, waste money, and time is the same way. You guys are on this, you're listening to me, you're getting a bunch of information, and you're investing, and maybe you are interested in startups, maybe you're interested in acquisition, and you can't find the dream practice that you're looking at. And so pivoting to startup might be a good route. And we're going to talk about all that tonight. And I think startups are a really good way to get into ownership. I think acquisitions are great too. I help with both, but tonight's all about startup. And I'm just going to tell you right now, the false sense of security with buying a practice, it's good in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about pros and cons tonight. Acquisition has a lot of cons, challenges rather, of buying practices. And that'll be a different webinar, maybe a different podcast, but startups are a really good option. I've helped multiple $1 million startups, and those clients wouldn't have done it any other way. And it's about how you do it. There's a process, and I can help you through that process. So again, ask your questions, comments. I'll try to help as much as I can, at the same time managing this thing. So looking forward to tonight. A little bit about the company. Sorry, a little bit about me. We kind of covered that. A little bit about the company. We're a nationwide consulting firm. On average, we will help about 50 to 60 clients at a time. It's not all pre-ownership stuff. When I say pre-ownership, I mean startup or buy. I said we do about 40. We help about 40 of you guys get into ownership. There's another 20 that we help, 20 to 30 on the actual ownership side. So we actively are coaching clients to grow their practices to another level. And that's a big side of our business, is helping you guys not only get in to ownership and get the keys, but also stabilize and grow your practice. And so we spend a lot of time helping doctors do that. We also have another division of remote billing and fee negotiation and credentialing. So if you are in the business, you already own a practice, or you're looking to buy or start, or even in the middle of a startup or acquisition, and you're looking for some tips and tricks on how to grow the practice, you also might be looking at fee negotiation, and getting you into network. We do all of that in-house. So I'm fortunate to work with a team of incredible people. I've mentioned a couple of those in that slide deck down there. Paula Quinn's my business partner. She has owned and operated 2 practices very successfully. She bought one practice in 2020 and flipped it in 3 years, did really well. And in years before that, she owned a practice. And so operationally and system-wise, verbal skills, clinical, there's no one better than Paula Quinn. I focus on the business, leadership, and marketing side. And then we have Stefani Sandoval, and she is our front office coach. And so we have a fantastic team here to support you if you're looking to start or buy or whatever you're looking to do. So that's a little bit about the company. So thanks again for your time, guys. That's about all the sales pitch I'm going to give you for the night. And so, yeah, let's just get right into it. What is the agenda tonight? The agenda is, what is it going to take to be an owner, just in general, a general, just, right out of the gate, what's it going to take to be an owner? Because I feel like that is the first step. You got to decide that you want to be an owner, and what is it going to take to do that? And then you got to decide your path, whether it's a startup, acquisition, or maybe even a merger, maybe even a partnership. But what is it going to take to be an owner? I think that needs to be discussed. Once we've identified what that looks like, we're going to pivot to what is a true startup and what's all involved in a startup. I won't spend a ton of time on that because that's pretty obvious, and I don't want to take your time just defining that, but I think we should touch on that. I definitely want to talk about pros and cons, which is the next part. Pros and cons, I think, really need to be boiled down and understood, because I want to communicate tonight that that buying a practice and starting a practice are two different things, but buying a practice, it's just got this perception out there that is the way to go, the least risky. And that's just not the case. If you do a startup the right way, I feel like it's even less risky than an acquisition. Now, that's a bold statement, but it's a true statement. And we can get into that, but there's a lot of pros and cons, and I think that needs to be boiled down. And then lastly, we're going to just talk about the initial steps of each. So I hope to give you some tips and tricks about what that first initial couple steps, what that looks like. Because if you are truly thinking about doing a startup, I think it's important to understand that the first few steps set you up for success all the way through the startup. So hiring a contractor and equipment rep, that's the easiest part of the entire process. And so I want to talk about what it takes to actually go into this process the right way, and not just calling up a real estate guy or a banker and saying, I want to do a startup. Who would you refer me to, and how would you do it? That is the wrong way to do it. And so let's talk about each step and how methodical you really should be about the process. So with that being said, what's it take to be an owner? Let's get right into it. I will say this, I kind of gave you my background. Like I said, I had a great job, had a great 401k, had great benefits working for B of A, made good money, more than the average bear, but something was missing. So for those of you that are working for corporate or someone else, you're making good money, you're busy, you're productive, all the things, you might even have benefits, whatever, something might be missing. And I'll tell you what you're missing out on that I now have as an owner of a business. You're missing something that's your baby, your passion, you're almost your identity. When I worked for Bank of America, I worked really hard. I cared about my clients. Today, if my clients are happy, it's a reflection on me, and everything that I do or everything that we do at Next Level is about that. And I have the control to do that. I can change things. I can add things. I can fire people if they're not solid. I have a lot of control. So control is number one. That's what you get with ownership. Number two, the wealth building that you will realize over time is a real thing. And what I mean by that is, right now you're working for somebody else and you're building their wealth, and you're making good money, and they might not be making as much money as they could if they were the producer. So maybe they are a dentist and you're running their practice, and so you are doing the production, but they are paying down debt on that asset. They are making money off of you. Maybe not as much as you, but they're making money off of you. And if they do that enough times, they're going to become really wealthy. And what's crazy is that, like, over time, over a course of 10 years, you'll go from having debt on an asset like a practice, having debt. And at the end of 10 years, just in 10 years short of time, think about 10 years, what that looked like. I can think about 10 years ago, I was working for Bank of America. That was not that long ago. And just in that short period of time, if I was you, I would own a practice. It would be paid off. There would be no loan. And it would be a pure asset on my personal financial statement, my balance sheet, my personal balance sheet. I would have an asset that was debt-free that I could sell for maybe $500,000 to $1 million. And it's a real asset, just like your home is, just like your 401k or your investments. It's a real asset. So it's not only what you make on a month-to-month basis, but it's also the wealth you are building in just a 10-year period of time. That's all it takes is 10 years for you to have a paid off asset that you could sell that goes right to your balance sheet. Doing the same thing that you're doing right now. I would imagine that you as associates are pretty much running the show at your practices. There might be a strong office manager, but between you and an office manager, you're probably running the show. You're definitely running the show clinically, and that's the meat and potatoes of a dental practice. And so you're taking on a lot of responsibility for someone else's balance sheet. And I want you to think about whether you buy that practice or you start it like we're talking about tonight. I would love for you to have that asset on your balance sheet in 10 years, plus the money that you make every year, the 10 years. And man, that's where it gets really fun, you know? And so I just didn't realize wealth building until I owned. Didn't know what that even meant. I mean, I know I had a good thing at B of A, but you really can't be in the driver's seat unless you control your business, can control your deliverable, your service, and also you can control your wealth building. So I'll leave it at that. That's why I'm so pro ownership. You guys got to get into ownership. That's the way to go. All right. Enough about that. I think ownership is the way to go. So that's really the first thing on the slide here is an ownership spirit. You've got to have an ownership spirit. If you are the doctor that enjoys your time off, everybody enjoys their time off, but I mean really enjoys and appreciates your time off, or you don't like conflict or hard conversations, or you don't think about, you don't have to be a great business person. Do not mistake that with this comment, but like a desire to own, then you shouldn't own. That's the truth. I don't think for all the benefits that I just talked about, folks that own, that are forcing themselves into ownership because all their friends did, or the pressures that you might have on yourself to own, don't do it. A lot of you are making great money and you are putting a lot of money into retirement, and you do get to clock in and clock out and you enjoy your time off and all that. It's okay to be an associate. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I've seen a lot of doctors make a lot of money and have a fantastic career and not buy. That's fine. But if you have an ownership spirit and an entrepreneur spirit and a desire to mold something, whether buy or start, mold something to your will, you have that desire, that spirit, you will realize much more than just being an associate. So you got to have that spirit first. The second thing is some leadership qualities. Now look, like you didn't get leadership training in school. I didn't. I've got a master's in business. I didn't get any training on leadership. And so, but you got to have a desire and you got to have some qualities. Like you got to be okay with having some hard conversations. We have a lot of content online on our YouTube channel, on our podcast about that exact topic of leadership. But you just got to have some leadership qualities. I think not having leadership qualities at all, you got to question if you should be an owner. The third thing, also almost equally as important as the first two, is confident in your clinical ability. I'll never forget my first year at Next Level Consultants, and I'm helping a doctor buy a practice, and I'm pro ownership, mind you, and he wants ownership. He does. He wants ownership. And I'm helping him buy this practice, and we are about 10 days from close. And he starts questioning his clinical ability. And I'm not talking about a clinical ability on all on X or clear aligner therapy or third molar endo type stuff. No, I'm talking about basic crown and fillings, and he's questioning his ability. And he brings it up at literally the last moment that he could. And, my feeling is that like, this is pre-ownership jitters. Why would you ever want to own and carry the flag and be the captain of your ship if you didn't have the confidence to do fillings and crowns? And I gave him a big pep talk. I did. I'm like, look, man, you went to school, you've been working, all the things, you've got this. He went through with the practice, and we coached him for about a year after. And his clinical skills just could have been better. And he struggled. And at the end of the day, you have to feel good about your clinical ability. And me as a consultant cannot tell you if you're there or not. I can't. When we look at buying practices, that's that is the most important thing when buying a practice is your ability, like that client I just told you, your ability to replicate and do what the seller is able to do at the speed he or she is willing or able to do. That is one of the biggest things at acquisitions. That's the risky part. You buy something and you can't maintain it. That means you basically just bought a house and the market tanked because you bought a practice and you can't upkeep the production. So acquisitions are actually very risky in some ways. And that is one of the benefits, and we're going to get into pros and cons tonight, but that is one of the benefits of doing a startup is you get to go at your pace. You get to go at your pace. The other thing about clinical ability is, of course, the more skilled you are, the more you can keep in-house, which the easier your projections and cash flow get. And so you don't have to be an all-on-X clear aligner guru, but if you did have experience in selling clear aligners, boy, doing a startup and selling a $5,000 case really helps your financial situation in your first year quite a bit. So you get my point. So clinical matters. I'm going to go through these last bit because we got to get moving here, but you got to have some cash. Ask questions about that if you want. Cash matters. You won't have to put it into the deal. There's no down payments, but having cash on hand matters if you're going to start a business. And it's not about what the lenders are requiring you to have. It's about just having cash. Why would you start a business with no cash? Ask me questions if you have about that. You got to have some vision. Definitely have some vision. At the end of the day, you have to know what kind of thing you're building, right? You have to understand where you're going with this. And so you might not have a clear vision, and your vision does change. Even my vision has changed over the years. But having some vision about what kind of business you're trying to create, what kind of lifestyle you want is important. Grit is something that every business owner needs to have. If you don't handle adversity well, ownership's challenging. You got to have grit. I've helped clients have babies. I'm not a medical doctor. That's not what I mean. But like I've helped doctors, as they were pregnant, go through a startup project, and they open and then they have their baby and they still come on top and grow the business. That's grit, dude. Like that's about as gritty as it gets. And so adversity and challenges and buying or starting, you got to have grit. And that kind of goes along with working hard too. Again, you have to have the desire to be a business person. You don't need to be an MBA. You don't need to have worked in a business world, but you got to have a desire to like your profit and to not like, but like lean into and appreciate your profit and loss. And again, have hard conversations, negotiate contracts, negotiate with vendors and even employees and all the things. Patients coming at you thinking that they're going to sue you or turn you into the board. Like, that's grit. That's having that business, desire is important. The last thing is you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's something that I had to learn as a business owner. I was kind of the guy that everybody liked, and I was a big networker back in the day. And once you become a business owner, you don't have the luxury of being the guy that everybody likes. You're just going to have to make some people disappointed, and you got to be okay with that. So being comfortable with uncomfortable patients conversations, uncomfortable employee conversations, just start to settle into being comfortable with uncomfortable. Look, you don't have to be a 10 out of 10 on any of these. But what I'm saying is you got to be okay with this list. You could even be a 1 out of 10 on this list. But this is what it takes. You got to be okay with getting you from 1 to a 5 to a 7 to a 10, that process on this slide. It's very important. Very important. Okay. Keeping it going here. Keeping it going. No questions coming in. I don't see any comments. Ask questions, guys. Right there. I just posted it. Jump in there. Ask questions. All right. So the next thing is what is a startup? Well, a startup is a practice with no patient base. It's as simple as that. You got to write a business plan. You got to apply for financing. You got to get into demographics. We'll touch some of this stuff. You got to negotiate a lease. The lease is the scariest thing about this entire process. It's a contract you sign that you pretty much cannot get out of. In a lot of cases, it's $1 million obligation over 10 years. So not only is your loan with the bank around $1 million, I'm just rounding up, your lease is $1 million obligation. So it's a $2 million obligation over the next 10 years. And you got to negotiate that and make sure it's the right thing. Got to hire a construction team, easy, no problem. You got to pick out equipment, easy, no problem. Go to ADEC, get schmoozed, go to their ADEC tour and get some steaks on them and all the things. That's easy. Everybody thinks that's doing a startup is about project management, hiring a contractor, hiring an equipment team rep. That's easy. It's easy to spend money. It's not easy understanding what business you're creating, picking your project team, easy, spending money, and then getting ready to set up your business for success, hiring people, credentialing, marketing, hitting the streets, doing collabs, picking software, getting your treatment plans, verifying insurance, figuring out how to collect your money, all the systems that go into what you guys all do and probably take for granted, quite frankly, going into the offices that you all work, that you have to figure out. So yeah, calling up Benco rep and saying, I'll spend $200,000 on 4 chairs, some cabinets, lights, hand pieces, and a cone beam. Cool. That's really easy. But getting your business set up, understanding what your business actually is before you start it, that stuff's hard. So marketing practice, open doors. There you go. I'm going to say that you're projected to make about $100,000 in profit income after your loan, your first year. That might surprise you. Probably, we're not going to talk too much about financials tonight, but I will tell you that typically surprises people, that they'll make somewhere between, I would estimate, 70 to 100,000 in profit at the startup if you're one of our clients. And so here you are, you're like, well, that's not much money. Sure, it's not a lot of money, but that's only working 3 days. Some of our clients only open 2 days, and that's okay. So you're working 2 to 3 days, making 70 to 100, working at your associate job, maybe another 2-3 days, making another 100, 150. You're making 200, and you just did a startup. Not bad. Not bad at all. So that's what you're looking at. What questions do you guys have about that? Like I think the biggest misconception of a startup is that you can't make any money. And when I was at Bank of America, the average doctor nationwide made somewhere between 130 and 150,000. Of course, I have clients that make a lot more money, and there's probably some of you on this webinar. And so those that make 200, 300,000, you guys are an anomaly, and a startup might be challenging for you because you're only going to make about 100 grand your first year. But I'm assuming you're working 2-3 days. You could probably make 150 to 200, 2 or 3 days if you're that kind of producer. So it's somewhat relative, but what gets challenging is the second year when you get busy enough, you're going to have to quit your associate job. And that's the hard thing. And not too many people know this, that the second and third year are the hardest of any startup. I can explain that if you guys want me to. Ask questions, guys. No one's asking questions. We are a solid almost 40 minutes into the presentation. I've got no questions here. But if some of this stuff is interesting, you could always set up a private call, discuss your situation a little bit more. If you don't feel like asking your questions tonight, that's totally fine. But if some of these things are stimulating your thought, it might require another call. Set up a call with me and we can talk. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay. Pros and cons. Now, a lot of these things you guys are going to know already, but I want to put it in business terms for you all, because and the way I see it, right? So like this list is the way it is, sure, and take a snapshot. You could show 100 dentists this list and they'll be like, yeah, I already knew all this. Let me break down each bullet point and explain to you why a startup is a pro for these things and a con is for these things. So good demographics. What do I mean by that? I was just on a call an hour ago with one of my clients who was looking to buy a practice, and the practice was mediocre. It was okay. It was making 200,000, maybe 250. And it was a good opportunity and it's in a good area, but it was just kind of mediocre. Like long-term, she wants to make more than that. And remember, after the loan, you're going to make maybe 150, 180,000. So it's just like not great, but it's okay. And so she wants to know about how to grow it because she's not okay with 180. So she wants to know about how to grow the practice. So we pulled demographics on the practice location, and the demographics showed that it was a very, very, very competitive market. So if you buy a practice, you're locked into those demographics, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to grow in an environment where you're competing with a lot more dentists. There was 88 dentists in a 15-mile drive serving 180,000 people. 88 dentists serving 189,000 people. It's about 2,000 people per one dentist. And that ratio is not that great. So for a startup, the $1 million startups that I have helped all went to areas that needed a dentist, and not just needed it, it was almost desperate. 5, 6, 7,000 people per one dentist ratio. You set up in an area like that, you have a good chance of doing $1 million startup. So that is why my pro of startup is good demographics. Now, if you're the associate that's like, I cherish my life, I want to live in this area, I've got the shopping mall 2 minutes down the road here, I've got my kids' school right down the road here, and this is where I want to practice. Guess what, guys? Your demographics are probably not great, because that was a bubble 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And you're going to be competing head to head with every other dentist in that area, and your growth will be slow and long. It'll be a long projection. But if you are willing to stretch yourself a little bit and to look at areas that are in more of a need for a dentist, you could do really, really well doing a startup. And I would argue that an area that is in need of a dentist is better than buying a practice throwing off 350 grand. Because my $1 million starts made a lot more than 350 grand their first year as a startup, because they went into an area that needed another dentist. And you might be thinking, well, there's no places around here. That's not true. Oftentimes it's 20 minutes from the most popular areas, but you got to be willing to drive 20 minutes on the outskirts in the next bubble. You got to be willing to do it. Okay? But it's there. It's absolutely there for you to take. If I was going to do a startup, or if I was going to get into business, I would either buy a really big dental practice that throws off a lot of cash, that's a great machine, and I'd go into debt $2 million if I had to do it. But I would buy that practice that was really big and that was a machine, or I'd do a startup in an area that's desperate for a dentist. Those would be like my 2 home run picks. But going in the middle of both of those scenarios, you're going to get mediocre results. All right, location and space, pro. You get to choose the location. You get to negotiate the space. Acquisitions don't get that option. You look at a prospectus, you look at the cash flow, you look at all the things, and that's that business that you're buying, and you didn't really get to choose that location. So startups is like, it's like a blank canvas. And if you have a very high, if you're looking at great demographics, you get to choose a great space that has high visibility. Doesn't have to be in shopping areas. A lot of people are like, are you a shopping area retail guy? I'm for and against it sometimes. So I know 20 years ago, Breakaway Practice was all about, I think they were all about retail. It's not all about retail anymore. I could give you a couple scenarios where it doesn't have to be all about retail, but you still get to choose your space and design it and create something for you. There's a lot to be said about space planning and picking the appropriate size and all the things. So that's a pro. Financing. A startup for financing, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it's the best loan you could ever get. Financing. Acquisition loans are great, don't get me wrong, but right out of the gate, you're making big boy payments. So if I buy $1 million practice, boom, I'm all day one, month one, I'm right into a $10,000 payment. And by God, I better keep that production up, and I better be keeping the wheels moving and the gears greased and all the things. And it better be a pretty smooth transition. And so that I can make my payroll and I can make that loan payment. The amazing thing about a startup loan is that they literally help you graduate into the stressful loan payment. It's incredible. No money down. They graduate payments so that you're not day one having to make big payments. You can grow into it. They're going to give you a ton of cash, working capital, cash. What's that mean? That means that when you open, not only did you build this beautiful space, you have enough money to spend on marketing, consulting, and they're going to give you money to pay your bills while you ramp up. So they're giving you money. You don't even have to have a savings account. You don't have to put a down payment in. And in a lot of cases, you can get a 15-year loan. That is crazy. And the interest rates are like lower than mortgage rates. So the financing for startup loans is incredible. Like I have an MBA, I have experience running businesses. I've started and owned multiple businesses, successful, have cash in the bank. All of that to mitigate risk. If I were to approach a loan to start an ice cream parlor, and my terms wouldn't even come close to what your terms would be as a dentist who has no business experience, no patient base, probably not as much cash as me, and they're going to give you $1 million at 5.25, 15-year term, graduated payment structures, like it's crazy, and give me cash to run the business. Like financing is unbelievable for startups. Unbelievable. They set you up for success. It's pretty incredible. I have an argument that it's better financing than the acquisitions. I mean, it's incredible. Okay. For the obvious reason, the facility is brand new. It's the 2-year design. Obviously, that's a pro. New equipment. This is a pet peeve of mine. A lot of my clients that are looking at practices just pass on really good businesses because the equipment is old. Like, I get it. You want to have okay equipment, but just appreciate the fact that you came from school and it was all donated by ADEC. So it's like the best equipment you could work with. Like, that's not how the real business world works. And so like dentists buy equipment and depreciate it over 20 years and it's still good equipment and it's functional and it works. And the patients don't care. And they get in it and they're looking upside down. And as long as it's not like uncomfortable, it's fine. The hand pieces turn, the x-rays are clear. Like, it's fine. But I have a lot of clients that just will pass on things because it's not to their standard. Well, this is a pro of a startup. It's everything you want it to be. Now, as a consultant, I'm not going to let you get crazy here. I'll win some battles, lose some battles. We might have an argument about CAD-CAM, or not CAD-CAM, but cone beams right out of the gate. We might not an argument. We might have a debate. Your budget may or may not allow for a scanner for impressions and Invisalign and all that good stuff. But it might. But with a startup, it's all about a balance and you have a budget, and it would be my job to make sure you hit your budget, not spending $1 more than we need to, and that it fits the business model so that the first year you do make that $100,000 that we talked about. Sometimes you just can't spend what you want to spend, that you got to like build your business to afford something like that. So, but it's all brand new stuff. Marketing budget. This is totally a pro. I help a lot of doctors buy practices and the practices have zero marketing budget, zero. So if I'm buying a business and I looked at the cash flow and the cash flow said the profit, if I'm looking at the profit and the profit said that I'm making $250,000, and after the loan, I might clear $180,000, like my client I just talked about. But the demographics are mediocre. And so I'm going to have to invest in heavy marketing. And the seller was not spending any money in marketing. Now I'm making $140,000 because I got to put $40,000 into marketing. So when you're buying practices, look at that marketing budget. That's your marketing budget. that you can spend on how to grow that practice. In a startup, you get a huge marketing budget that I allocate or that I budget for, that you'll be able to hit the ground running with a $40,000 budget. You can do that with a startup. I just talked about financing. Got to manage your budget, manage the equipment guys, manage the contractors, manage all those people, manage the fact that you're not hiring a hygienist right out of the gate, manage that you're not giving them more than 3 days of work, manage that you're not giving them health insurance right out of the gate. If you do some of these things, you're going to have plenty of money to market yourself. And if you have plenty of money to market yourself, it almost ensures success as the startup. So, but the fact that you can have a solid marketing budget your first year, that's a pro. That's a pro. The last pro is you get to pick your team. You get to pick your team. Where do I even start with this? Buying a practice, you do not get to pick your team. Just last week, I had a client call me. The front office lady, the front office manager, went up to him and said, "Hey, the seller said that you were going to give me a $5 raise and guaranteed this." And my buyer's like, "No, that definitely is not the case, but let me call the seller and ask." Called the seller. Seller's like, "She's lying." So the front office goes, "Well, give me a $5 raise or I quit." So here she is trying to leverage her position as the office manager to a brand new buyer who just took over the practice. He ended up not giving her the raise. She quit, and a lot of downstream issues happen from that. It is a pro to be able to pick your team. Let's just put it that way. A lot of people think it's a pro to buy a practice and have an established team. I would argue that in a lot of cases is a con, because I help a lot of clients buy practices, and the team can't teach an old dog new tricks, is the saying, and their loyalty is to the seller in a lot of cases. And so, yeah, it's a con to be able to pick your team and grow with that team. So if you get to pick that team member and they're not good, fire them and hire new. But because you're a startup, you can have those disruptions to your business and it won't affect you at all. But if you bought a practice and the front office gal held you hostage, that could create some disruption very quickly in a business that you just wrote a really big check for. The startup, I remember my $1 million startup in Washington a couple years ago. She went through 3, maybe 4 front office people in the first year as she's trekking $1 million. She went through 3 that we personally helped hire and fire. Was not good. And she's just fine because she just trekking. So it didn't hurt her because it's a startup. It's slow growth. Okay. I'm going to blow through these cons. It's obvious. Cash flow. The first year, the first 6 months are challenging. Cash flow. I have a solution for that. The bank has a solution for that. The real estate person, that the advisor that's helping you, has a solution to the cash flow problem. You're going to have your job part-time. That's a solution. There's a lot of solutions to that con. That's the biggest con. Cash flow, no cash flow. But there's a lot of solutions to that con. Unpredictable. It is somewhat unpredictable. An acquisition is pretty unpredictable, but it's more predictable than a startup. Juggling 2 jobs, that's not fun. Nobody thinks that's fun. And quite frankly, I have a lot of clients trying to quit their jobs way prematurely. In fact, another call today, Dr. Peter is quitting his job. He told me today, and he's 6 months into his startup. I would say he's 6 months premature to quit. And he knows that, and we had a long conversation. He's got his reasons, and I get it. he happened to save a lot of money and he's in a good position. But and he can do that. He can afford to do that. But the whole reason why you get into ownership is so that you can run your own business, command your own ship, have vision, do all the things. And so of course, you want to quit your job as soon as possible. But one of the cons is you can't quit right away. That's not a good idea. It's not. Training the team. I would say this is a pro and a con, actually. Should be on both sides. It's a con because you have to train them on all the ways you want to run your business, how you want to collect money over the counter, what's the cancellation fees if you want to implement that, what software, and train them on those software systems, how you want to pick up the phone. There's a lot of training involved. Now, of course, they come with experience, but is experience good or bad? I'll ask. Is experience good or bad when you're hiring people? Think about that for a second. It's good that they know how to tell a patient post-op instructions and actually understand what they're saying. That's a good thing. It's good that they can read an EOB and explain it to the patient. That's a good thing. That's experience. It's bad if they have a lot of bad habits that need to be broke. And I want you to think about that. And it's specifically at the front office, to be honest with you. I will tell you right now, the front office position is one of the most important positions of a startup hire. And they run your practice in a lot of ways. Now, they can't control your diagnosing, but they can control the case acceptance, right? They control collecting money. Oftentimes, they control pre-appointment and rescheduling. They can control insurance verification, making sure you don't do a crown when the insurance won't pay for it. That's a tough lesson to learn, right? So that front office is very important. But consider this. ADOM is a fantastic organization for front office people. I would say that ADOM doesn't touch even a tenth of the front office people out there, meaning those front office people are not going to ADOM and learning. Like you, dentists, are going to the midwinter just finished, and you did CEs and you learned. You have to for your license. Hygienists have to for their license. Dental assistants go to school. Now, although their school may or may not do a great job, and they don't come with a ton of experience, at least clinically, there's a little training there. Front office people could literally come from Wendy's, nothing against that, but come from Wendy's and be trained by Greta. I'm saying Greta, who is a front office person for 50 years at a practice. And Greta hasn't been trained up on all the new ways for the front office. And now she comes with 2 years of experience to you. Imagine that. They just don't have a lot of training. We do a lot of front office training at Next Level. And I would say sometimes 50%, it feels like, of our clients, maybe 40% of our content that we're delivering to our clients is heavily front office, because our front office people just do not have the training, the systems, the know-how, because of the office that they worked for before or whatever the scenario. So training the team is a con because you have to do that. But it's also a pro that you get to train them. If you were buying a practice, it's like you're not going to come into a practice and train them on how to do their job. They should already know their job. So it's hard to train somebody like that. So it's a pro and a con. I hope you guys are following my madness. There's no systems with a startup. You need to create your own systems. It's difficult. It's challenging. That's a con. And I think you got to make way more decisions as a startup than buying a practice, because the team is looking to you for leadership and they come with their experience, but you're going to be the one that has to make the decision and the final say on everything. You got to make the final say on setting your fee schedules at the correct percentile. You got to make decision to spend an extra 20 grand on the tile in the bathroom. 20 grand. It's a little aggressive. You got to make the decision if the scanner for $12,000 is worth the investment. You got to make a lot more decisions. So that's a con. Could be a pro though. Could be a pro as well. I would want to make decisions. That's my personality. So that's kind of a pro for me. But if you don't want to make a lot of decisions, then it is a con for sure. All right. We're an hour in. My plan was to go about an hour. If you guys can totally hang, we're going to go through quickly the first few steps. This is the last bit of it. Vision. So backing up. Oh boy, I can feel another rant. Here we go. My grandfather, it's a true story. My grandfather had a 6th grade, maybe 5th grade education. He's an amazing man. I miss him today, every day, and admire him in so many ways. Had a 5th grade education, and he wanted a loan to buy a property that had some rentals on it. Never had a loan, didn't have many assets, no business experience. And he tells me this story once about how he got a loan. So he went to the suit parlor to get a suit. Remember, this is a long time ago. He called it a shark skin suit. To this day, I remember it. I'm imagining this really amazing suit. So he goes to the suit place and talks him into lending him the money to put a suit on him. He puts some kind of business plan together of some sort, and he goes to the bank with his borrowed suit and lays out a business plan for this bank to give him the money to buy the property that is a business. And he gets the loan. And to the day he died, he ran that business. He ran that business. That is what he did to get the loan. The preparation, I did that story zero justice, but the point to that story is that a lot of thought went into not only the delivery of the business plan, but also his perception, the whole thing, right? All that thought and energy. I'm going to tell you right now, when I was with Bank of America, 29 out of 30 dentists would approach me, and it might even be 49 out of 50 dentists approach me with an actual freaking business plan of what they wanted to do with my money. I want you to just freaking digest that, okay? So because it's easy to get a loan because you're a DDS, and everybody says, well, that's because we're such a good default rate and we're amazing and we pay our, yeah, that's true. But there is a big, huge difference between someone that's successful and makes good money and someone that's just kind of surviving. So the banks always talk about dentists being the best risk because they don't fail, they don't bankrupt, they don't turn the keys in. Well, the last time I checked, that's not the pinnacle of success, is not failing or not turning your keys in. That's not the definition of success. I talk to dentists every single day and they're not making enough money. Trust me, that's not success. What success is getting into ownership and thriving and making great money and putting it into investments and doing all the things, legacy money and all that. So I'm on a rant right now because business planning and vision is the most important thing you could do about this process. And too many of you will walk up to an equipment rep at the freaking midwinter and say, help me do this. That's not a business plan. You should be walking up to the bank and saying, I want a 2,100 square foot location. My vision is to do family dentistry, but let me define that a little bit more. I'm going to do all bread and butter. I'm also going to incorporate Botox and do paraffin hand services. I'm going to also take an Invisalign course immediately, which is why I need an extra $5,000 for a Medit scanner. Here's my projections. I'm going to hire this many people. This is what I'm going to pay them. I'm going to spend this much on SEO, this much on Google paid ads, this much on mailers. I'm going to work another job and make 100. Like, this is what the conversation should be. And instead it's, hey, I'm thinking about owning Benco Rep. What's my first steps? Well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to take you down this path of buying a shit ton of equipment. And a lender's going to give you $1 million loan because they can. And the contractor is going to ask you, what's your construction budget? And guess what? Their bid's going to come in $1,000 less than that. Like, what are we doing? It's very reactive and it should be proactive. That's the bottom freaking line. Is number one is vision and business planning. And we should be putting a lot of thought into that before we would even approach a vendor. So a consultant can be that for you. They can help you through this process. I love this part of the process. And I'm here to help you do that. And whether you're a holistic pediatric dentist, which I'm helping in Dallas right now, or you're an all-on X and want to go after kind of a clear choice business plan where you're dropping implants and spending $100,000 in marketing a month to reel in 60,000 all-on X cases, whatever your business plan is, I can help you do it. But that is where it starts. Okay. That's where it starts. How much money do you want to make? How much do you need? How many ops? We kind of covered this. How many team members? What kind of services? How many practices do you want to own someday? And how fast do you want to acquire them? How many days open? What marketing will you do? Who's your competition? Not only who your competition is how long does it take to get a new patient scheduled? I have my clients do that kind of research to their competitors. How are you going to differentiate yourself? What insurances are you going to accept? Which ones aren't you going to accept? What will you refer out? Maybe bring in a specialist once a month on Saturdays and you do the specialty work in office. Pay them 50% of production and you keep the other half. I don't know. What does the business look like? Let's figure that out. Once we know that, then I'm going to go back to demographics. I told you guys that's already a big thing. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this just because I've been really hitting this hard. But we have a formula. Residents per office, employees per office, population density, median household income, population growth. Growth is a really important thing. Really important thing. And then household, owner-occupied household is really important as well because I don't want to per se go into a college town or maybe a ski town. I used to work in Colorado, a ski town where residents would come in and ski and then go back down to their real home down in Denver. But they had a ski house. So where are you getting your patients? Like, do they own the house? So we got to look at that kind of stuff. Demographics. Okay, we talked about financing. It's the best financing someone could get. But how do you get it? The 5 C's, we used to talk about this. I used to talk a lot about this when I was lending. It's the 5 C's. Cash, credit, Character, cash flow, collateral. What's all that mean? That means you got to have some cash. Can't walk into the bank saying, give me $1 million. You have 20 grand in the bank. Got to have a decent credit. Character is subjective. I could explain that one, but we don't have enough time. Cash flow. What's cash flow? Well, if you're doing a startup, you have no cash flow. You're thinking, but not really. If you have projections, you can show cash flow. Projections are cash flow. I'm projecting to do 5, 6, 700,000, and we're going to ramp up this fast or this slow, whatever. And then the collateral is, of course, the practice. So once you can get approved because you pass all the 5 C's, then term matters. Everybody talks about rate. Rate doesn't matter as much as the terms. If I gave you the lowest rate, a 2.99 interest rate, but it was on a 3-year term, your payments would be like 50 grand a month. Well, no one could afford that. But hey, you got the best rate. So length matters. Repayment schedule matters. Interest rates, of course, matter, but in that order: length, schedule, interest rate. I'm going to keep going. Location. Big, big, big important thing to think about. Your business plan dictates this. Let me say that again. Your business plan dictates this right here. Why are you doing retail? Why are you doing non-retail? What's the benefits of not doing retail? There are benefits of not doing a retail space. Call me. We'll talk about it. I'll tell you exactly why. Foot traffic, traffic counts, big space versus small space. Big space gets you into some serious trouble. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not only will you spend way more money on your loan, but also your cash flow will suffer the bigger the space is. Long-term versus short-term, exclusions, exclusivity, signage, parking, all of it matters. I'm helping a doctor in Indiana right now do a startup. They're going to be a family-owned business or family, a dental office, family kind of family practice. But he's bringing in a periodontist every two times a month. And so parking matters, egress, ingress out of the office. We needed private exits out as people are going to be sedated. Like all of this matters. You got to have the right location. Signage matters. ADA, I think 10 years ago, I don't even know if this is a true statistic, but the ADA said 1/3 of your patients come from your sign. Your freaking sign. And that's probably true. Because when I coach doctors, by the way, our startup program goes through 3 months of ownership. So it's like vision all the way through 3 months of ownership. And when we track where the new patients came from, I train my teams and clients to track that like crazy. If you ask anybody on the marketing next level team, they know I'm a psycho about where we got our leads from. It's the same reason why I'm a psycho about you guys knowing where your leads came from. And I do see sign and walk-ups probably is about 1/3. I see that. So signs matter. If you can get some temporary signage approved by the landlord, that's huge. Landlords hate putting up gaudy banners that wave in the wind and look crazy, but you can negotiate in the front end. I think about that kind of stuff. Real estate folks don't think about that kind of stuff. I want A-frame signs on the sidewalk if there's a lot of foot traffic. I don't want the big like gas station wobbly guy. No, it's not what I'm talking about. But I do want big signs, and I try to create a build up. 90 days before open, I like best dentist in town coming soon. And then 60 days from open, like putting my brand up now and saying coming soon, grand opening, 60 days or whatever. Call now, and then 30 days taking a new patient special. Like, I'm creating a build up, because I don't know if you're like me, guys, but in your community, your little bedroom community, wherever you live, and you're driving to work every day and you see a sign, it's like, best dentist coming soon. Oh, wonder what that's all about. You know, you're driving by it literally every day for 30 days. And then it changed. Oh, there's their brand. Cool. That's happening. You're driving. Every day you're driving, right? Traffic counts, walking traffic, foot traffic. And you're seeing, oh, now there's a logo. Oh, they're accepting patients. This is great. Local dentist coming to, maybe we should go there. I love my dentist, but gosh, this is super convenient. Should I go there? Maybe I'll check them out. I don't know, but that's right. And then 30 days, $99 special, whatever you want to do. Exam x-ray only, which is not that bad of a deal, by the way. New patient special. That's cool. I'm going to try them out. That's great. Oh, I'm going to schedule right now. Like, you're building this up. You got to negotiate some of that stuff in the location. So again, all the crap that we're thinking about, it's not crap. It's really good stuff, but all the things you're thinking about this stuff. Like, there is a lot of stuff, you guys, that you got to know and think about. Next Level thinks about all that stuff. All right. I'm getting a freeze here. Oh, man. Sorry for the technical. So I'm kind of coming up on the end of the road here of this presentation. And I'm oh my goodness, what's going on here? And what I want you all to think about is, do you want to get into ownership? And we covered that. And if you do, what's the best way for you? And if we uncovered a lot of great things about a startup, what I would love for you to hear is that you have to be very intentional about this process. And whether or not you hire me or not, I'm a big fan of a coach. You know, Tiger Woods had 4 coaches. If you watch that Tiger show on Netflix, it's fantastic. But like, it's incredible the amount of coaching some of the best had. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. There were stories about like Tiger Woods literally leaving the third day of the round in the middle of a tournament, and he would yell at his driver to pull over on the road, going down the highway, and he would get a bunch of balls out, and his coach would be right beside him, and he would just be smacking balls because he was thinking about how the spin was weird on hole 16, and he wanted his coach to watch so that they could figure out hole 16 for tomorrow's round. That's a very extreme example, but if you want those kind of results for your business, I would love to be your coach. If I'm not your coach, I think you should get a coach and consultant. We have the experience. And reach out, guys. Reach out. We're going to probably send an email out asking you to check out or set up a call with me. I'm also happy to do some free demographics for you. We have resources to do some demographics. I'm also happy to give you a next level business plan template. But again, I'd rather you do it with me, but I'll give you free resources all day long if it helps you do better for you. And that's what I'm all about, is helping you guys do better. And if I'm part of your team, great. So I'm hitting that spot where I definitely went over, and I'm sorry I did. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. You know, my goal is to make you all better than what you could do by yourself, and we have the track record to do it. So please reach out, and without further ado, have a great night, and I hope I hear from you soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.